Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Ahora empieza su programa, el show del doctor Roy Aranda. Temas sobre los efectos que tiene la separación de los niños de sus padres, traumas que afrontan los indocumentados, violencia doméstica, el porqué de la violencia en las escuelas. Llámanos en vivo al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6, y haz tus preguntas al aire. ¡Comenzamos!
Good evening, Tribuna TV viewers. Buenas noches, Tribuna TV televidentes. I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad that you decided to join us today. There's certainly plenty of other competition today in the country, so I'm glad that you're here. Tenemos mucha competencia en el país, so muy contento de que ustedes decidieron venir a este programa. Today is Thursday, es el jueves, June 27, el junio 27, y estamos aquí with a very exciting show, an interesting topic, one that as we develop, you'll see why I think it is of such importance. And I do have a wonderful guest. I have Mr. Konstantinos Michaelis here, and he will share some insights about actually a personal experience that he had relevant to tonight's topic. Tonight we are dealing with the topic of surviving injuries, health problems, recovery, and post-traumatic growth. El tema para esta noche, sobreviviendo los daños, consecuencias físicas con problemas de salud, la recuperación y el crecimiento post-traumático. So I wanted to introduce you. So it's Konstantinos Michaelis, and I think in some circles you are known as Kaz.
Yes.
And in other circles even as the Kaz Man. So you will permit me, Konstantinos Michaelis, it's too long for me to say it, so I'm just going to abbreviate it and call you Kaz or the Kaz Man. So welcome with us, and why don't you just briefly, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are and more or less some of the activities, some of the things that you do, and then we'll open up the discussion of why you're here and how important the messages that you have for the viewers for tonight.
As you heard, my name is Konstantinos Kaz. I am someone that has gone through a number of tragedies, and I had to learn how to cope with all these horrific tragedies and to use them or channel them in a special way to come out of them, number one, but number two, to be able to use them for positive and optimistic motions forward and to move forward in an optimistic way.
Well, I mean, that's consistent with the topic. It's surviving injuries and health problems and a path towards recovery and how to cope with it, and that's all part of what's called post-traumatic growth. I think that the Tribuna TV viewers, this is my 16th show, and I am so happy to say that today we broke the spell. It's not raining. We have a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, not rain. It seems that like I was fated to have rain every single Thursday, but it's not raining today. But significantly, and I did want to give an indication of why I think this particular topic is of such importance. So, Oscar, if you please put the first slide, I want to show the viewers and a sense of what the leading causes of death are in the United States. In the first slide, we have that.
Yes.
That's not me.
What happened?
Los vientos del saber.
No, sorry. Okay. It's here.
We're getting some fake news here, so please bear with me.
Okay, I'm sorry. 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 Okay. It's okay. It's the first slide.
Oh, ya lo tienes?
Yeah.
Okay, survive. All right, it's hard to see. So the... Oh, yes, okay. So leading causes of death, you can see pretty much at the top. Heart disease, cancer, second. Third place, accident. So pretty much unintentional injuries. You can see the sheer number, 170,000. This is in a year. So you can see how incredibly significant this is, which is why I decided that I wanted to talk about this particular topic and what the consequences are to the public. Second slide, please.
Okay.
So these are accidents, just in general. Types of accidents. When people fall, very often they may sustain a head injury. This is what's called a traumatic brain injury. It's a major cause of death and disability in the United States. Traumatic brain injury-related emergency department visits, hospitalizations, and deaths have increased dramatically by 53% over the past 12 or so, 10 or so years. You have approximately 155 people in the United States die daily from injuries, including TBI, traumatic brain injury. What we're looking at mostly are falls and motor vehicle accidents. Approximately 1.25 million people die every year in road crashes. That's astronomical. That's more than 3,000 on any given day. And 20 to 50 million are injured or disabled. Occupational injuries, which is one of the areas that we're going to look at today, because Kaz was injured in an occupational injury. We see statistics that indicate that a worker is injured on the job every 7 seconds. This is pretty dramatic. I mean, it's pretty high. You have more than 5,000 fatal work injuries were reported in 2017, and more than 3 million non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses in 2013. Okay, puedes sacar el slide. So what this means basically is that everybody, either you've been in an accident, somebody who's been in an accident, you have a friend, family member, relative, somebody in your life, if not you yourself, has been involved in an accident. Okay, the statistics strongly would support this. It's inescapable, and regrettably and sadly, sometimes it happens more than on one occasion to people. So because of this, and I thought that it would be very important to hear directly from somebody who actually lived through it was a life-ending accident for your coworker, and it was close to it was certainly life-threatening and close to a life-ending accident for you. You were, I believe, professionally at the time, this was like 15 or 16 years ago, you were working as a commercial roofer, yes?
Yes.
What is a commercial roofer as opposed to any other kind of a roofer? What is a commercial roofer? That's what you did for a living professionally.
Yes, a commercial roofer is one that roofs buildings as opposed to residential homes.
Okay, so like something in Manhattan, or like
anywhere there's
commercial buildings. You have the banks and schools and professional
corporations and banks and schools and many other entities. And with commercial roofing, we replace old roof with new roof, and we also do repairs. But it's industrial, it's big buildings. It's not the residential part of the business, which is homes.
All right, this is heavy duty kind of work. I'm sure these are gigantic slabs that are very heavy. You were also a union. You work for a union. You had been doing that type of work for many years. So tell us what happened, because there was an incident that occurred that you were some 3 or so stories up in the air. What happened? I
was 3 or 4 stories up with my coworker, and we were replacing old stone panels, roof panels, with new ones. The panels were 3 feet wide by 6 feet long. The defective ones were being replaced with new ones.
3 by 6. This is bigger than an average person, obviously, because most people are not 6 feet tall.
Big. The panels were big. They were heavy, enormous, and we were replacing them with new ones. And engineers had previously inspected the panels, and the panel that we were on was supposed to be good for us to be on.
Well, how do you know that? How?
It was marked off by the engineers. There was actually no mark. The ones that had an X on them, we weren't allowed to go anywhere near. The ones that had no marks were the ones that we could stand on and work on.
This is like standard. I assume that this is OSHA and standard safety kinds of things, that there must be a way of knowing that something is damaged versus something this needs to be repaired versus it's okay to step on this. I assume that there's some similarity to knowing that you have a live wire when you're an electrician as opposed to a wire that's dead. Otherwise, you risk getting electrocuted. There have to be some safety features in terms of what you do. So you were replacing these 3 by 6 panels, and one of them was not marked properly.
It was not marked properly, and my coworker and I were on that panel. It was the end of the day, and we were going to replace that panel with a new one. It broke through the panel itself that was not marked correctly. Snapped in half.
Why did you step on it?
Because we were allowed to, because the ones that weren't marked were the ones that we could step on.
So you're assuming that was
safe.
Okay.
Safe. It was the engineers were OSHA certified, and New York State certified, and overqualified. So we felt confident and safe to be on these panels, but they must have missed this particular panel, and it wasn't marked, and we were on it, and it was the end of the day, and it broke in half. It sent my coworker and I through the roof and through the building, 3-4 stories. We hit the ground eventually.
So you fell.
We
free flight for like 3 or more stories.
Yes. We went 3 or more stories, 3 to 4 stories, and my coworker, his neck snapped. His head rammed into the concrete floor, and there was a hole in his head when I looked over to try to help him, but I wasn't able to move. I was all busted from head to toe, but I was hoping to be able to help him, but I was more or less dreaming. There was no chance of me helping anyone at that point, and there was a hole in my coworker's head, and there was blood pouring out of his head. I noticed his head was tilted in such a way where I can tell his neck had snapped.
So he perished.
He perished.
And you obviously survived because you're here to tell the story.
Yes.
How did you manage to survive 3 flights? I mean, you must have been physically. You either braced yourself, or you were in good shape. Something protected you. What was it?
All of the above. I did brace myself, and I was in phenomenal shape. I was in the best shape of my life, and my faith. I believe in my faith in Christ. Those three. I braced myself. I was in excellent shape in my faith in the Lord. I believe that's why I'm here today to tell this story.
So you're slightly smaller back then than you are now. But you were a bodybuilder, right? I
yes.
mean, you can share that with the viewers. You were a bodybuilder, and you used to pose and things like that, and probably that's what saved you. So essentially, this was obviously a fatality, very severe accident. What were the consequences to you? What happened to you? You had physical and you had emotional consequences.
Yeah, physically speaking, my whole entire back got thrown out of alignment. My hip got thrown out of alignment. My left arm, the upper left extremity of my arm, separated from the rest of my arm and was hanging off place. And in my right leg, the tibia bone had snapped in half, and my eyes were bloodshot. My whole entire body was out of alignment. I felt everything.
You had multiple fractures.
Multiple fractures.
And then you were taken. Was it by ambulance or by helicopter?
By ambulance. I was taken to the emergency room. The emergency room by ambulance.
Okay, and obviously you were hospitalized.
Hospitalized.
The hospitalization was for about how long?
I was in the hospital for 10 days. I was rushing to get out because I wanted to make my coworker's funeral, which was being delayed because he had family coming from other states, and I was hoping to make his funeral. So I was rushing my progress. I really was not quite ready to leave, but I was telling the doctors that I was feeling so good, and I feel great, and this and that.
Well, you weren't particularly used to being a person whose perception was one of being sickly or ill or needing to be in a hospital.
No.
This was like not consistent with you being outgoing and working out all the time. So it must have been like a big shock having to spend so much time in the hospital.
Tremendous shock. Tremendous.
So that was the physical part. What happened to your career? Because I work with patients very often who have these occupational injuries. I gave you the numbers before. Every 7 seconds somebody's injured. Many of my patients are unable to return to work. Those that are able to return to work, it's because the injuries are relatively mild, and perhaps they're able to go back to work with some modifications in their work schedule or what's called light duty or some sort of accommodation. But many of them with multiple injuries just never go back. There are other ramifications. Age may be a factor, like your boss may not want to take you back if you are damaged goods. They don't want you to come back that way. You may not be able to return to work on lighter duties, so you have to go back and be able to do the job that you were supposed to do, and if you can't do it, then you don't come back. There may be some retaliation, and you lose the job. So all sorts of problems come of it. Some patients are fortunate enough that they're able to do some programming and find different types of employment. In your situation, you had very severe injuries. You were off the grid in terms of being able to work for years.
Many years.
And I'm going to assume you had to go through all sorts of evaluations. What type of doctors were you seeing over what period of time?
6 years, back-to-back surgeons, neurologists, therapists. I was seeing pain management doctors. Every day I was seeing someone different, every day.
You were on, pain management doctors would specialize in medications.
Yes.
Including injections and oral kinds of medications.
I was getting cortisol shots in the back of my neck, constant attention.
And the surgical, they were for follows, because you had metal plates, screws and metal plates?
12 screws and 2 metal plates, 10 screws and 2 metal plates in my left arm, and 2 long screws in my right leg.
Okay. You had hoped to be able to return to work? That's something that you had wanted to do?
I wanted to return to work, yes I did. I didn't want to face what was going on. I just wanted to bury it and move on, and I didn't want to deal with it.
You kept pushing for it, but the doctors kept saying you can't.
Yes,
You're not qualified, you can't. You're not medically clear to go back to work.
No, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and the doctors said no way. They said that you're in no condition to be going back to that type of work, which was all physical.
What did that do? What did that do to you? How did that affect you in terms of your emotional adjustment, your well-being? How did that affect you?
It affected me in every way, in every possible way. It threw my schedule off, number one. I was extremely disciplined between work and bodybuilding and everything else that I did. So it threw my schedule off, number one. But it also threw my confidence off. I started feeling less confident. I started feeling insecure. I started doubting myself, questioning myself, making decisions that were off, that I normally wouldn't make. Those type of decisions I'd make much wiser.
You were more impulsive or not thinking things through?
Yes, I was more impulsive. I didn't put as much thought into what I was doing. I even got sort of reckless in a way. I had a phenomenal physique, as we spoke about earlier, with the bodybuilding, and health and fitness was my cup of tea.
So reckless how?
Reckless. I started eating abnormally.
Meaning what? Eating
more frequently, eating too much.
Bad food.
Bad for the wrong types of food. I was eating more frequently. I wasn't concentrating on my physique any longer. I ended up putting 100+ pounds on. I started feeling less and less about myself, and my positive thinking started to go out the window. And if it weren't for my faith in Christ, and if it wasn't for my faith, period, I don't know if I would have, made it through. It was very difficult. Very difficult.
You also had, a strong source of support. You had family that was supportive of you, and so you had a support group. What sort of thoughts, images, issues developed because of the accident? Because we have the consequences of the accident that resulted in you not being able to work, and behavioral changes and changes in your appetite and how you're taking care of yourself. What sort of emotional reactions did you have from the actually flying through 3 floors and observing the loss of a coworker of yours? What did that do to you? Because a lot of people that I work with are very traumatized by it, and they experience what's called post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, where they visualize. They see things, they've come so close to death or the loss of a loved one. Were you affected in some way by dreams or by images of the loss of your friend? Well, a coworker, I guess, not a friend, but a coworker.
Tremendously, yes, I was affected tremendously. That bothered me more than anything else, because I was close with my coworker. We became very good friends, and we worked side by side every day. Did overtime on weekends. We were always together, and I would drive him to the train station after work, and we'd grab a bite to eat and grab a cup of coffee, and we grew very close. And I knew how important this job was to him. This was a second chance in his life.
You're having basically images. I mean, you're actually visualizing him. While you're awake, you're having images pop up. Sometimes people, they'll be in an area where an accident occurred, and all of a sudden they'll have a recollection of the accident, or they don't want to be in the area of the accident. They develop a phobic response, a fear of that area, and they don't want to be there. This is when you're awake, but also many patients will tell me when they are sleeping that they have a dream. They may have a dream where they see themselves in something like an accident. It may not be exactly the accident, but it could be a fall or falling off a cliff or into an abyss, something related to something bad happening to them, being chased, being attacked. This negative thing, they wake up scared and startled, and for a couple of moments they have no idea where they are. They're in a complete state of disorientation. So these are some of what's referred to as flashbacks and recollections. You were having those kinds of thoughts?
Absolutely. I started to relive it when I was able, after many months of not being able to, when I was able to drive again, when I got the okay from the surgeons and from the doctors and even from the state, because I was on the workers'
So you
comp.
needed to be medically cleared to drive.
I had to be medically cleared by
There's a good reason for that.
Yes.
Because people are on medication. They need to be able to be alert and aware of like how they're driving, not go through lights because they are not focused, or they lose their concentration, or that somehow the medication's affecting their reactions. And of course there are laws about, you know, what you have in your body when you're driving. So it's good that you were medically cleared. Was it a neurologist who medically cleared you, or what type of a doctor was it, the one who medically cleared you?
I had to be medically cleared by my orthopedic doctors, and I also had to be cleared medically by the state of New York, because I was on workers' comp, and they had to clear me as well to be able to drive, and my orthopedics. But I had severely injured body parts that are needed for driving: my right leg, my left arm, my back, my hip, and the doctors were concerned.
So you had to demonstrate that you had the actual ability and skill set to be able to do that.
Exactly.
So you're talking about a whole host of emotions and changes in your life and things like that. I want to point out to the viewers what, in general, some of the symptoms or emotions and behavioral changes and thoughts that are connected with injuries. So, Oscar, can you please put slide 4? 4. Let's skip 3 for the moment. Put 4. We're going to come back to 3 a little bit later. I'm going to show the viewers now some of the emotional consequences.
Okay.
These are feelings such as guilt, depression. Depression, you're sad, your life changed. You can become angry, irritable. You're angry at how life has changed for you. You can't do the things that you did before. Irritability, you get snappy. You snap at your parents or the spouse or your children. You just, want to bite somebody's head off. You're in a bad mood all the time. Anxiety means you feel nervous. You're sort of like on the lookout. You feel ashamed the way your body looks, what happened to you. You become more isolated. You have thoughts that things are hopeless, a sense of helplessness. You can't do things. Feelings of worthlessness. You're no good. A sense of a foreshortened future. This means that basically you don't feel that you're going to go much further in your life. You sort of feel that your life's coming to some change, that you've reached a dramatic point in your life that you're not going forward anymore. You may be afraid, you may panic, you startle, you hear like a sound, all of a sudden you jump. Loss of self-esteem, you don't care for yourself anymore. Emotional numbness, you don't feel anything. It's like, I don't care, I'm blah. I don't care. You want to do something? No. You want to go out? No. You want to eat? No. It's like you're blah. All of a sudden you have no feelings. Chronic worrying. You may be all the time worrying. What's going to happen? What's this? How am I going to pay the bills? When do I have to go to the doctor? What's happening tomorrow? Guilt, which is at the top. I want to just very quickly touch upon that. Puede sacarlo ya, Oscar, is something that I see very often in people who have been in accidents. They may worry about what is it that they should have done differently. Were they in an argument before they went into the car and then were in an accident? Were they distracted? Is it something that you have a survivor guilt, like how come I'm here and somebody else isn't? I saw that a lot in 9/11 when I worked with people who were first responders and who were there after 9/11. Many of them harbored feelings of guilt, like why am I here and I lost a coworker, I lost somebody else. So these are some of the emotions associated, and you identified yourself several. You were, not taking care of yourself. I guess you're feeling angry, irritable, feelings of loss of self-esteem if you weren't taking care of your body. Let's look at some of the thoughts that are associated. What are the things that we say to ourselves? That's in slide 5. The previous slide are the emotions, feelings. This next slide, thoughts. What are some of the things that in our mind we say to ourselves? Es el 5. Okay. So in our brain, we have this chatter. We're always talking. Things are always coming. We're saying something to ourselves at all times. So the thoughts could be, for instance, I'm useless. I'm worthless. I'm no good. I can't do anything. My life is horrible. I'd be better off dead, or I'm better off dead. Recurrent recollections and thoughts of a negative nature, negative kinds of thinking. And I see this very often in my patients. They'll report to me that they have difficulty sleeping at night for a number of reasons, predominantly because they're in pain. They can't get comfortable. They're on medication, so sometimes medication may also have effects. But also they're struggling with this chatter in the brain. What happened? I can't work. I can't pay the bill. I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to support my family. That's the intrusive nature of the negative thoughts that we tend to dwell on very, very, very often. That's what I mean by the thinking, the cognitive piece. You also talked about some of your physical complaints. Let's look at slide 6, and we'll see some typical kinds of physical reactions that patients will report following an accident, following an injury. Very, very common. Headaches, muscle tension, muscle stiffness, all kinds of pain complaints. Kaz was complaining of pain in the arm, pain in the leg, pain in the back, disturbed sleep. My patients very often will have complaints that either they can't get to sleep, they can't stay asleep once they're asleep, frequent awakening, it's what you call non-restorative sleep. You're not able to really get a good night's sleep, so when you awaken and then you go about your day the next day, you are tired. You also have possibility of oversleeping. So all of a sudden it's like you're dragging on, or you fall asleep, and then you don't want to get up. Like you're overly tired. Nightmares. Very often I'll get patients complaining of nightmares. Appetite changes. I see 2 different kinds of disturbances in appetite. Many of my patients will report a loss of appetite. They're not interested in eating anymore. And some, they have nervous eating. All they do, eat. You're telling you gained 100 pounds. So it's the nervous eating. Some people, it's erratic. Sometimes they overeat, other times they undereat. Gastrointestinal issues, stomach distress, irritable bowel problems, going to the bathroom. So these are some of the gastrointestinal kinds of conditions. Respiratory distress, wheezing, shortness of breath, loss of energy, very, very typical. If you're not sleeping well throughout the day, you're going to be dozing off and you're going to feel tired. Medications also, when you're taking a lot of medications, patients report that they feel sort of like a zombie. Gives them like a sense of being spaced out a little bit. Problems with concentrating and memory problems. Now, you can have problems with concentrating and memory problems, and it doesn't mean that you had a head injury. You're just, you're not feeling well, you're physically not well, you're not sleeping well, your diet is gone, your life has changed, your routines have changed, you're so focused on certain things and not on other things, so that because of that you're distracted and you're having difficulty with concentrating and memory. In your case, though, you did hurt your head, no? In your fall, didn't you sustain a head injury? You had a head trauma?
I protected my head when I took the fall, but the fall was so traumatic that a lot of the doctors that I seen over the years thought that it may have been affected my mind and everything, my brain.
What's called a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, it was a
You were
traumatic
actually
accident.
seeing a neurologist.
Yeah, I was seeing a neurologist. Yes, I was seeing a neurologist, and the fall was so bad that they couldn't leave anything for chance. They couldn't leave anything by chance.
But you said that you were somehow your ability to focus and some of your ability to remember things, or your memory, that was in fact impacted. That would be one of the classical symptoms of traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, and I found myself, when I was able to drive, I found myself driving to the scene. Like I found myself like reliving it, like wanting to go back and, wanting to relive it. And there was guilt feelings because my coworker and friend died, and I felt like,
You
wow.
survived and he didn't die.
Exactly. Yeah, there was feelings of guilt, like he didn't make it and I did, and I get to live the rest of my life and he don't. And yes, I believe in the afterlife, but at the same time, he doesn't get to live here on this earth as I do, as I get to live here on this earth.
And there are behavioral changes. So we've talked about emotions, we've talked about thoughts, we've talked about physical consequences. Slide 7, Oscar, I want to look at behavioral changes. I want to really cover the gamut of human reactions, be it how you feel, how you react physically, your thoughts, and behavioral changes. These are some behavioral changes. You become increasingly isolated. You avoid doing things. You avoid other people. You're afraid outside. You don't want to go outside. You become detached. You engage in risk-taking behaviors. This is what you said. Could be overeating. Could be maybe over-reliance on medication, over-reliance on substances, driving differently, driving a little bit more recklessly, not paying attention to things, engaging in self-injurious behavior. It could be that you have thoughts that life is not worth living. And this is potentially something very serious that needs to really be talked about and looked at. Suicidal, self-injurious behavior. Aggressive, acting out behavior. You become more irritable, snappy. It could put you in a situation that you react or you overreact, and there could be some sort of an aggressive consequence as a result of it. Changes in grooming, very, very common. Why bother shaving? You don't feel like it. You don't have the energy. You don't care about your appearance. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to go out. You don't want to change clothes. So changes in grooming behavior. I mentioned before reliance on alcohol, substances, medications, increased dependence on others. You may become solely now, well, do it for me. I can't bend. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, I am not doing it. So all of a sudden, you are developing this need to be nurtured, taken care of, and another major thing that I see very often in patients who have intimate relationships, who are married or have significant others, changes of sexual desire, loss of intimacy. They feel distanced and alienated. That is a topic, by the way, that we will pick up next month. I have an expert, and we will be talking about the effects on intimacy and changes in intimacy behavior. So, slide 8, I also want to focus on what are some of the functional difficulties. I sort of feel like I'm giving a whole lecture here, but I think it's really important to try to separate out and distinguish some of these things. Some functional difficulties, changes in your activities of daily living. What has changed for you? We focused on emotions, we talked about the thoughts, we talked about physical reactions, we talked about some of the behavioral manifestations. These are some functional difficulties. You may have difficulty standing for long, sitting for long, walking for long because of pain, difficulty lifting, carrying, bending, reaching for things, dressing, taking care of yourself, engaging in grooming behavior, bathing, turning your head. I'm going to guess you, Kaz, had difficulty turning your head, and you also probably had difficulty with your arm and with your legs. So
Absolutely.
Mobility was a problem for
Absolutely.
you. Doing routine things like shopping, cleaning, cooking, even something like reading. When your neck hurts, it's difficult to position a book properly so that you can read it. It's like, oh, got it. It hurts. My head hurts. It may be blurry. You don't feel like reading. You can't retain what you're reading because you're having problems with the concentration. Carrying a conversation, you'll get distracted. You lose your focus. Before you know it, like you're repeating yourself, or you're saying something again, or you're asking a question, and you don't remember somebody said something to you. Small things like performing calculations, you're distracted, counting change, going to the store, things that routinely you're able to do very quickly, you can't do now. Driving, you said that your driving was affected. Traveling, many patients were involved in motor vehicle accidents, travel kinds of injuries, travel incidents will report a fear, some sort of a phobic reaction. They may avoid taking an Uber or a cab, or they're afraid to drive. They may be afraid driving, they as drivers, or they may be afraid as a passenger in a car. Performing strenuous activities, some of the routine things that you have to do, lift something, carry something, wash, something simple like standing at a sink for 10, 15 minutes to help washing dishes when your back is killing you. You're not going to be able to do that. That's going to be a problem. So those are some of the functional difficulties. And Oscar, give me page 9, because now slide 9, because now we're going to look at, with all of this, what impact does it have on you? How does it affect you? How does your life change? What are the changes? You were telling the viewers that you stopped, you couldn't work. You couldn't work out. You used to do semi-professional bodybuilding, I guess. You competed.
My workouts were very limited, and I couldn't work out until I was healed.
You couldn't do that anymore. You never did go back to work. You were never medically cleared to work. So we're going to focus a little bit later, because you were able to do something, and that's the positive part.
I had to go through other avenues.
About towards the end of the show.
I had to go through
what are some of the consequences? Very typical, very common, strained family relations. Husband injured, starts having arguments, disagreements with significant other or wife. Problems with the children, strained family relations. You ignore your health needs. You reach a point you don't care. You don't feel like going. You forget about your appointments. You miss the appointments. After a while, your life has changed so much that you're going to doctors every single day that you don't feel like doing it anymore. Over-medicating, and the reverse could be under-medicating. You may be popping too many pills because you're in pain. You also may be forgetting that you took medication, and because of that, you're over-medicating. Or you're under-medicating and just forgetting to take your doses. Taking increased medical risks. You don't bother keeping your appointments, and because of that, you miss something that's important. You needed an injection, you didn't get it. You needed a CAT scan, you didn't go for it. You needed an MRI, you didn't have it done. You needed a special test, you missed it. There's a development of other medical conditions. When you're ill, when you're in an accident and you've hurt something, before you know it, you start having other issues. other problems will develop, and you'll have some concurrent and a conglomeration of other kinds of issues affecting your health. The chronicity of the condition over a period of time, as was the case with you, after a while it just becomes chronic, and you start thinking, I don't care. Why bother? And with the chronicity, things tend to get worse. They don't get better when they're chronic. They tend to get worse. Learned helplessness. This is a very interesting psychological concept that pretty much means that because you try to do something, or you've tried to do something and you've had unsuccessful outcome in being able to do it, that after a while, no matter what you do, you're doomed to fail. So after a while, you give up. You've learned to be helpless. It doesn't matter anymore, no matter what you do, so why bother? You develop secondary gains. For instance, if you have your grandmother from another country came to visit and she's pampering you, so you become sort of like a little child again, and you're being taken care of. You get some benefits from being ill. Those are the secondary gains. But significantly, financial hardships. You're not working. You're not making the income. Being on workers' compensation, you don't get rich being on workers' compensation. So you're losing income, and if you lose your job and there's stress, and then all of a sudden another family member's got to go to work 7 days a week to try to bring a little bit more income, and that creates this adds to the strain in the family relationship, and you can see that you start getting a vicious cycle. From one thing, loss of income, loss of job, loss of income. Because of that, you're feeling inadequate, you're no good, you're useless. Because of that, you're listless, you don't want to go out, you don't tend to yourself, you start having arguments with the kids, with your spouse now is relegated to trying to look for more work, and that creates some more of a friction, and before you know it, it's like this cycle that you're just going down like a vortex. Loss of lives, and I had mentioned suicide before, and I did just want to at least give an idea that we're looking at suicide increase 33% over the past 10 years, and just in 2017 there were 47,000 suicides. So those are people who died at their own hand through a suicidal act. But you have many people who will express to me that they have thoughts that the way they have become in their lives hardly not worth it, not worth living that way. So I wanted to focus now for the remainder of the program, the remaining 10-15 minutes, really on what are some of the things that can be done to get over this. You can take off 9, right?
Yeah.
Okay, ya, quita 9.
No, is it the other?
No, déjalo por un momento. Oh, okay, no, you're on 10. That's fine. Yeah, what are some of the things that you can do? So, and this is where, again, I do want Kaz to tell us, like, what are some of the things that he said and what that he was able to do to come out of this this near-death injury that you had. Well, certainly, at the top I put seek professional help. If your injury is serious enough that you're not able to work, you do need that professional help. I mean, be it an orthopedist, chiropractor, neurologist, medical doctors, physiatrists. Those are the kinds of doctors that you do need to see. If you're having emotional consequences, depression to the point that you don't want to go to work, you're not taking care of yourself, you have thoughts that life's not worth living, well, you need psychological, psychiatric, social work, mental health kinds of professional treatment there. There are many things that you can do other than that without the professional help, things like positive thinking. Focusing on positive things. I'm going to get over this. Every day is a day that I am closer to being recovered. One day more of recovery. Having contact with supports. You were lucky that you had family members and you had friends and churchgoers that were very caring for you, Kaz.
Absolutely.
And so that was important. You also talked significantly about a religious belief. Now, I understand that viewers, they may or may not have certain kinds of religious beliefs, and I certainly can respect that, and I understand that. But for those who do, there are religious organizations, be it Christian, be it Catholic, be it Jewish, be it Muslim. There are many different, the Hindu, there are many different religions and religious organizations that are out there and available that are a source of support. Libraries modernly is like little colleges. You go to libraries like you're in a little university.
I was living in a library?
Yeah, you have access to the newspapers, the books, other people. They have like training, education, workshops, programs.
7 days a week I was on a library.
It's incredible, the stuff and the resources that you have available there. You can even get together socially, because sometimes there's people that will organize an activity at the library, and you can have some sort of an event and have speakers come there. It's an incredible source of support. Reading. To the extent that you're able to read, that you don't have blurry vision, that you're able to focus, it's good to do some reading. Online learning. Modernly, we do everything on smartphones. We have access to iPads and computers. You can do a lot of educational learning through the computer. I have many patients who, after injuries, are sitting listlessly at home, complaining that they have nothing to do, that their life is very boring, that all they do is go to the doctor, and I will sit and I'll tell them, I'm sitting in my office and I'm telling them, why now might be a good time for you to do some online classwork or actually take an adult education class. Why wait? You weren't able to do it when you were working. You didn't have the free time to do it when you're working, but now you have free time. So try to do something to better yourself, develop skills. It's all goes to skills. Small steps. If you can't do something entirely one day, or you can't do what you were able to do before, take one small little step. Small step every day, a little small step to get to that goal. What's important to you? What is it that you want to do? You're here now. Now, this is your life now. What's important to you now, given that you injured yourself? What did you used to like to do in the past? What hobbies did you used to have? Maybe now that you have some time, or there's changes in your schedule in life, you can try to do something new. Try an adventure. Get something that might interest you at this point in time. You may have wanted to do it, you never did it. Perhaps now would be a good time. We've talked about educational opportunities, recreational opportunities. You can go, many of the geographic locations, communities where you live, they have gyms, they have swimming pools, they have areas that are recreational you can go to, probably free or very low cost. Go on outings, as much as you can tolerate, as tolerated. Go for a walk. Go to a park nearby. Watch the ducks. Watch children play. There's things you can do. Reach out. You have a phone, make a phone call. Now would be a good time to talk to somebody who we haven't spoken to in a while. Reconnect with people that you've been out of touch with. Pets are divine. If you are, for anyone who's a pet lover will agree with me, pets are miracle workers. I mean, they bring so much drive, so many patients that their pets just bring life. They smile, they shine when they have pets. You're taking care of something else. This is wonderful healing experience. Meditation. You can either get a tape, buy a book, learn how to do deep breathing, how to do some sort of repetition of a mantra, listen to music, engage in arts and crafts, make plans. Like right now, we are at the throes of July 4th. We have July 4th around the corner. Oscar, can you go now? I wanted to save number 3 for now. Give me 3. Slide 3. It hasn't escaped me that today is June 27th, and July 4th is next week on Thursday. And these are some of the things that I have had people tell me, and I chose to call it voices of despair. These are some of the things that I hear and that I worry about when I'm dealing with my patients, when I hear something like, I don't see a reason to go out. I can't do anything with pain. I'm financially, physically, spiritually not well. When one is like this, it's difficult to do anything. Wondering how to pay the rent. Everything gives me stress. I don't want to do anything. I feel like I will die of the pain. My body is breaking down. Those are all the negative thoughts. These are, how do you overcome this? I mean, how do you overcome this? Like I tell my patients, what can you do? You have July 4th around the corner. I don't want to do anything. I don't have any money. I'm not interested. I feel terrible. I'm stay home. What can you do? What can you do to make something, even if it's just a wee little bit better? Is there something that you can do? What did you do? Take it away. What was it that you did? What helped you?
What I did is, number one, I cling to my faith in Christ. So that was number one, my faith in the Lord.
You were already religious, but from the conversation that we had earlier, you told me that you actually became even more involved.
Yeah, I became more involved.
In what?
In different Bible studies, different groups, fellowship groups, one-on-one meetings with people from the church.
So you're involved in a church on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
You attend their meetings, their prayer groups.
Bible studies,
events with children.
Yes,
you help host them.
Yeah, I teach the kids at the church, the special needs classes, and I'm very grateful that the church has me do that. I'm thankful for that, and clinging to my faith, clinging to my Lord.
And you've tried your hand you've tried to become a little bit of dabbling here and there. Since you like pets, you did try your hand at some pet products and things like that.
I became the founding investor of a pet product
and because of that, you met somebody who became a very good friend of yours also.
Yeah, I met Gary Jacobs through that, a good friend of mine who I threw his name out because he's a great person, and I met him through the pet industry, and I became a founding investor in several companies, and I started taking on other interests that I no longer was doing the commercial roofing, and I didn't want to.
Well, physically you can't. You were never medically cleared to do that, but you weren't prevented from using your thinking and your heart.
Absolutely not.
You were able to reach out to others and to do something.
Community work and learn investments and study business books, and I spent every day in the library. I mean, the library was an escape for me. I spent 7 days a week in the library.
So
learning.
What you did is a great way to summarize slide 11, which is sort of like a good way to sew it up for you all today. We've gone through all of the statistics and the problems and the injuries and the emotions and the thoughts and the behaviors and functional consequences and all of these things. So let's look at slide 11, because this is how I really want to sew it up for you today. The last one.
It's last one.
And this is very consistent with what Kaz was saying. And really, the bottom line, it's all about resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, learn from failure. It's sort of like over time, with passage of time, with your ability to sort of get over something and grow from it, it's like water just brushing off. It doesn't affect you as much anymore. Post-traumatic growth. This is growing from adversity. Somehow, because you had a difficult encounter, something difficult in your life, and you survived it, you went over it, you got over it, you developed, you grew from it. That's post-traumatic growth. A lot of this has to do with how you frame this in your mind. Because if you think of something as you had an injury and the way it affected you, the results of the injury, your interpretation is, I'm a failure. I can't do anything anymore. Like my life changed and, it's no good anymore. If you interpret it that way, look at the difference between interpreting it that way versus, well, I went ahead and I started going to the library. I reached out to friends I hadn't spoken to in many years. I developed a new hobby. I got a pet. I joined a group. I'm socializing a little bit more. I'm in pain. I can't do some of the physical things I used to do before, and that's okay because I'm doing other things now. That's actually strength. That makes you stronger. That's a positive thing for your life. This is what I call really finding a silver lining. The meaning of silver lining, every cloud has a silver lining, means that every difficulty or setback has the potential of a positive outcome. Everybody, all viewers, everybody watching the show today, everybody has a silver lining. You may not know what it is, and I encourage all of you, if you're not aware of what it is, go out and look for it. You all have the silver lining. It's got to be something individual, something for you. For me, it's reaching out to you through the show. It's bringing guests. It's trying to tell stories, trying to empower the community. It's helping people. I have my pets. I love them. They're part of my silver lining. I like to have outings every now and then to the North Fork. We have beautiful scenery in Long Island. I'm pretty sure that the rest, many parts of the country have beautiful, gorgeous places to look at. It all depends on how you look at things, how you view things. If you look at something as, well, I choose not to be broken. I choose not to be defeated. Let me see. Let me use some of these suggestions. Let me look for some of the positive things that I can do to go forward. Let me educate myself. By the way, dear viewers, I did want to bring to your attention, the show is actually recorded live. It's already on YouTube. Tomorrow it will be available on Tribuna TV, on the link for Tribuna TV, on Vimeo, and I believe on Facebook. But the nice thing is that you are free to look at the slides, print them if you want. I went to a lot of trouble to try to come up with something that I was hoping would be educational for all of you, and something that would empower you. Ultimately, I'm hoping to empower all of you so that you can actually have good lives, and you can have a wonderful July 4th coming forward next week. Kaz, what's your do you have like a, I think we have to end Malmenos now? They're going to yank me off in a minute. What message do you have for the viewers? Because, we've seen you go from really tragedy to something that's actually beautiful. You have a beautiful life.
I do.
So what message do you have for the viewers? Not for me, for the viewers. They're out there.
The message that I have for the viewers is never, ever give up. Always keep your head up high, way above water. Never give up, no matter how distraught you may feel, no matter how disgusted with your life, no matter how depressed, no matter how hard things get, circumstances, situations, scenarios. Never, ever give up. Always, always, always look to better yourself, to progress, to move forward. I spend every day in the library. I learn so much. I've done a lot of great things with it. I've been able to help out many people, and that's what I want to give the audience. You
found your silver lining. It's up to you to find your silver lining.
Absolutely.
So everybody really, really be very safe. I wish you all a wonderful and safe July 4th.
Happy 4th of July.
And I will see you all in July. We have some good topics coming up in July. So buenas noches a todos los televidentes. Thank you, Oscar, for your excellent help. Good night.